Hello and Tesla everyone. This is the fourth and the last clip on your first chapter, that is Cold War and the Non-Aligned Movement. In this clip, I'll be covering the arenas of the Cold War. Now, although arenas of Cold War as a topic is not specifically mentioned in the syllabus, however, CBSE has included this in the pages that the students are told to read from the old book. So without much ado, let us move on. Now, the Cold War also led to several shooting wars, but it is important to note that these crises and wars did not lead to another World War. So, when we talk about arenas of the Cold War, we refer therefore to areas where crisis and war occurred or threatened to occur between the allied systems, but it did not cross certain limits. All right. So the events that we are going to cover here are the Cuban Missile Crisis, Korean War, Vietnam War, Berlin Wall Crisis, Congo War, and Afghanistan War. The first one is the Cuban Missile Crisis. Cuba, as you can see, is a small island nation off the coast of the United States and was within easy missile range of the US capital. Okay, but Cuba was an ally of USSR and it received both diplomatic and financial aid from it, that is the USSR. Now that we know Cuba's location, which plays an important part in this event, we must also know three people who are directly involved in this case. So first is Fidel Castro, who was the leader of Cuba, then John F. Kennedy, the US president, and finally Nikita Khrushchev, the Soviet leader. Okay. Now we know that there was competition between the two superpowers in terms of allies. Soviet was scared that the United States might conquer Cuba, since the United States had already sponsored some Cuban dissidents, meaning protesters who wanted to overthrow Fidel Castro. Okay, so Fidel Castro was scared and he sought the USSR's help. So when Fidel Castro sought USSR's help, Soviet decided to convert Cuba into a Russian base, to which, of course, Castro agreed. So USSR started placing nuclear missiles in Cuba in 1962 because, in fact, the United States had already placed nuclear missile in Turkey, which was near Soviet. Here, okay, so you can clearly see in the map the range of missile, which is shown in orange lines, okay, and the name of the missile was Jupiter missile. Anyway, after Cuba agreed to convert itself into a Russian base, USSR, as I said, started placing nuclear missiles in Cuba. Now look at the map that I've taken from your textbook. You can see the range of the missiles that was under construction in Cuba. It could, it could almost reach the whole United States. So when the United States came to know about the installation of the missile, Kennedy, the president of the United States, he quarantined the island with a naval blockade. Now we know the meaning of quarantine very well. So he actually ordered the American warships to stop any Soviet ships heading to Cuba. He also said that any nuclear missile launched from Cuba would be regarded as an attack on the United States and demanded that the Soviets remove all of their weapons from Cuba. So this event actually lasted for 13 days and was called Cuban Missile Crisis, since this event nearly led to a clash and many people feared that it would even lead to World War III. Okay. However, both the superpowers finally came to certain agreements. Khrushchev, he agreed to take back their missiles on the condition that United States would, number one, lift the naval blockade and that US would also not invade Cuba. Okay, and finally, the United States also agreed and also removed the United States missiles from Turkey as well. Thus, the crisis finally came to an end. So we see why the superpowers are in need of allies, be it territory, spying, or launching nuclear weapons. Okay. Anyway, in this crisis, both the superpowers behaved in a very responsible way. They both realized that war by any means should be avoided because of deterrence, and that made them exercise restraint. Now, I explained what deterrence and restraint means in my second video, so if you wish, you can watch that. I'll leave the link in the description below. All right, so this is all about Cuban Missile Crisis. Next we have is the Korean War. Now, on June 1950, North Korea attacked South Korea in the desire of uniting whole Korea under communism. The United Nations, principally from the United States, they defended South Korea. China and the Soviet Union came forward to help North Korea. All right. However, they were eventually defeated and the war ended in 1953. Now, we must remember that India played a crucial role in mediating between the two Koreas. Next is the Vietnam War. The North Vietnam, like North Korea, also wanted to unite the whole Vietnam under communism. All right. So North Vietnam was supported again by China and Soviet Union. Although the United States supported the South Vietnam, they failed and had to leave Vietnam under communist rule. So it's very easy. In both Korean and Vietnam War, the North was under communist and supported by China and Soviet Union, and the South was supported by the United States. However, the US turned victorious in Korean War, and the Soviet Union and China actually turned victorious, or they won in the Vietnam War. Okay. Then we have the Berlin Crisis. The Berlin Crisis actually was the last major incident in the Cold War. Germany, after the Second World War, as you can see in the map, was divided into four parts, that is the Allied forces. It is generally said to have divided into Eastern Germany, that is under Soviet Union, and the Western Germany, comprising of United States, France, and Britain. Okay. Now, Germany's capital, that is Berlin city, which falls in the East Germany, was also divided into Eastern Berlin, that is under the Soviet Union, and the Western Berlin under the United States, France, and Britain. Now, the reason for the crisis was that hundreds and thousands of Germans, they annually migrated to West Germany, since the life in the West Germany was far better than in the East Germany. And since the migration included most of the intellectuals and professionals such as engineers, technicians, lawyers, teachers, skilled workers, it resulted in the brain drain. Okay, so thus in 1961, in order to stop the East Germans crossing into the West Berlin, East Germany, they built a high wall across Berlin which divided the East and the West Berlin, and this is known as the Berlin Crisis. Then we have the Congo War. Congo, as you can see in the map, a country in Africa, received its independence from Belgium in 1960, okay, following which there were many civil wars. A Congo crisis was actually a proxy conflict in the Cold War, in which the Soviet Union and the United States, they supported opposing factions. You just need to remember that in the Congo crisis, the United States Secretary General, he played a key mediatory role. Finally, we have the Afghanistan War. Now, during December 1979, Soviet troops invaded Afghanistan. The United States opposed the invasion, and as a result, the United States government withdrew the SALT II treaty and even announced boycott of the 1980 Moscow Summer Olympics to oppose the USSR invasion of Afghanistan. All right. Now, besides the Cuban Missile Crisis, which you must study in detail, in terms of the other shooting wars, you just need to have a little background knowledge of those wars, since only the names of the wars is mentioned in your textbook. Okay, and thus, even if question comes on those, it might be short ones, but you must do Cuban Missile Crisis in detail, as it usually comes for 4 marks. Going back to the content, so you can see that although both the superpowers were involved in all these crises or wars, but they didn't cross certain limits and it didn't turn into Third World War. Okay, now both the superpowers behaved in a very responsible way, because of which it didn't turn into Third World War, because they both realized that war by all means should be avoided. That actually made them exercise restraint. So as the Cold War rolled from one arena to another, the logic of restraint was increasingly evident or increasingly clear. Okay. However, this doesn't mean that their rivalry ended. In fact, the suspicions between these two led them to build more deadly arms, which led to arms race. Okay. However, despite having deadly arms, the power blocks stayed restrained, or rather in control, in order to avoid war. But then at the same time, they understood that war might occur in spite of being in control, or in spite of restraint. So they decided to collaborate and signed treaties in limiting and controlling nuclear and non-nuclear weapons, which we have already covered in clip 2. So do watch clip 2 for better and complete understanding of this chapter. Okay, and with this, we have completed our first chapter. I hope my videos have helped you in understanding the chapter better. In my next video, I'll be starting with our second chapter, that is the end of bipolarity. Until then, take care and study smart. Bye.